Hey everyone, this is Kathy from K-Dale Handmade, and I wanted to welcome you to my video tutorial today. This is part of the Marathon Sewciety's sewing series. Today we are making the Eileen Pool Tote by Sew Majestic, and let me just show you what that looks like. It is such a great size and has so many great features. It'll be great for the pool or for the beach. You have two mesh pockets on the front as well as a clear vinyl pocket. On the back, you have a slip pocket as well as a zipper pocket. On the inside, you have a large zipper pocket. And then on the other side, you have slip pockets that go the entire width of the panel, and you can divide them however you like. Again, like I said, it's a really good size. It's a nice big tote. The one thing that I will say that I changed from the pattern is I added just a little handle here. So basically I just folded these in half so that I could make a handle from the straps. This is 1.5 inch wide webbing, which I find just to be a little bit wide for my hand when I want to grab it. So at 3/4 of an inch, it makes a really good handle. So that's what I changed from the pattern. Otherwise, this is what it looks like. All right, and this is the one we're making in the video today. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so to create our side panel, we're going to need our clear vinyl piece and our 2 pieces of mesh. So we're going to line them up on the short sides, clip them in place. Now, Amber does give instructions on basting across the bottom of your mesh panels. So basting across the bottom here, and then that will help make it a little bit easier for you to gather your panel. This panel is wider than what we need, so there will be a bit of bunching, but I think I'm just going to make my pleats as I sew. But if you wanted to add that basting stitch line first, you could do that. Okay, so once I get these clipped down the sides, I am going to sew down each side according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern. Okay, once you get your sides sewn on, we're going to flip it open. Seam allowance goes towards the mesh side so that our vinyl is nice and flat. Now you're going to take your piece of fold over elastic, fold over elastic. I'm going to just, let's see, I'm just going to do this so I can hold it so I know where the center is there. I'm going to find the center of my vinyl. Just going to make a tiny little fold right there. And then I'm going to center my fold over elastic right on the top, and I'm going to fold it over. There is a natural line on the fold over elastic, so I'm just lining that up with the top. Now I will say that you'll notice your elastic is shorter than your mesh, and that is by design. When you get to the mesh, you're going to want to pull it slightly to make it match all the way, and then that's going to pull this pocket in a little bit and make it a little bit poofy so that it's easy to put stuff in when you're using it. So I'm just going to clip that all the way down, and because it is stretchy and I'm working with the mesh here, it's going to be a little tricky because it's going to want to pull in. It's going to pull the mesh in as soon as I let the clip go. You can see it starting to bunch in as I'm clipping it. But that's exactly what we want. So we want to make sure our mesh is all the way up in there, because this is only 1 inch fold over elastic, so you're only working with a 1/2 inch on each side there. So you just want to make sure it goes all the way across. Okay, so you can see kind of how that bunches that in right there at the top. If you did have this basted down here, it would be doing the same thing at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and clip the rest of the way across, doing the same thing, pulling it so it matches at the end here, and then I'm going to sew this strip right along the top of the panel. All right, once your fold over elastic is sewn on, you're going to grab one of your main exterior panels. There is a measurement in the pattern provided for where you are to draw a line across the bottom of this panel. We are going to take our clear vinyl and mesh pocket and line it up with the bottom of this panel. Now, because I am using clear vinyl and I cannot put a pin in it, I'm going to just use some double-sided tape here to help this hold. So I've already marked the centers of my panel and I've marked the centers of my clear vinyl, so I know where that will match up. There we go. I'm just going to put that right there. And then as you can see, the side panels are longer, and this is where we are going to bunch it in. So again, I'm just matching up the sides here. I'm going to add some clips along the side. Okay. And then same thing on this side. Matching the bottom of my mesh panel with that line and then clipping the side in place. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to baste down each of the short sides. I'm going to sew across the bottom, but like I said, when I am on the mesh pockets, I'm going to make my own pleat right here in the center. And same on this side. Now you could just kind of bunch it and do it, you know, if you'd rather have it spread out throughout the width of the panel, or if you would rather have just like one pleat, totally up to you. But we're going to sew all the way across the bottom and baste the sides on. And then the last thing we need to do, once we get that sewn on, we are going to sew down these sides here. So right in this seam, we're just going to sew down here, sew down here. This one isn't as critical because it will be hidden by our straps when we attach our straps, but we're just going to sew this down to help it to attach a little bit more securely. Okay, so I'm going to take that to the machine, do all of that, and I'll be back. All right, once you get that sewn on, here's what it looks like. Here are your two pockets. You have your clear vinyl pocket in the center, baste it on all the way across, and baste it down these sides. Okay, now before we attach the straps, let's work on the other side, and then we'll attach the straps to both sides at the same time. So we can put this to the side, and let's grab our other side pieces. Okay, so to make our exterior zipper pocket, we are going to take our pocket bottom pieces, our pocket top piece, our zipper, and then we have our pocket lining piece. So let's just start building the front first. So we are going to take our exterior, take our zipper, flip it over. It should match up exactly. We're going to clip this in place across. And then we're going to take our lining piece, flip it over, so we are making a zipper sandwich here. Our exterior and our lining pieces are right sides together with the zipper in the center. And I'm just clipping it across here, flush with the top of the zipper. And then I'm going to sew across according to the seam allowance. Press both panels back and away and then top stitch. And we'll head on over to the machine and I'll show you that part. All right, and then we're going to press both panels away from the zipper tape. I'm just giving mine a nice finger press, and then we're going to top stitch at about 1/8 of an inch along this folded edge. Okay, so that's how it's looking right now. Now what we want to do is we want to take our pocket lining piece and we're going to lay it down right side up and align it up with the top of our zipper tape. So I'm just going to clip this in place across the top here. And then taking our top piece, we're going to flip it over so it is right sides together. Again, aligning it along the top edge of our zipper tape. Okay, and then we're going to sew across that according to the seam allowance. All right, once you have that, we're going to flip it up. And again, top stitch. So everything is down. Just this top piece we're folding up and top stitching. All right, so once you have that done, you can see kind of what our zipper pocket is going to look like. This is going to also be our slip pocket, so we want to take our slip pocket lining piece. We're going to flip it over right sides together, lining it up with this top edge here, and sew according to the seam allowance. All right, now we're going to flip that back. So the pieces are wrong sides together, right sides out, folding right along this top edge, and you can clip it in place. With my waterproof canvas, it pretty much holds the line, so I don't think I think I'll be just fine without clipping it this time. All right, and so there is the slip pocket portion with the zipper pocket in the front. Now the last thing I'm going to do is baste around these three sides. Again, that's just going to help to hold my zipper closed. As you can see, it came off, so I think I'm going to just reinsert it so I don't have to worry about that on the other edge. All right, once you get your pocket made, base stitched all the way around, this is how your zip pocket is looking. And then of course we've top stitched here to create our slip pocket. Now what you want to do is you want to grab your other exterior panel and I'm going to find the center of this panel just by folding it in half. And then the center of my zipper slip pocket here. Okay, and that's where that goes. Again, because it is waterproof canvas, I could put some pins in the side here, but I think I would rather do some double-sided tape. So, all right, removing the paper backing, again with the center of my pocket, lining it up with the center of the main panel. Oops, if I can get the paper backing off. There we go. Just find that center again. You could mark a little notch in your fabric. All right, and then let me just grab a ruler just to make sure. Where am I? Let's go this way. Yep. Perfect. Okay, so now once you get that done, what you're going to do is you're going to baste stitch around all three sides, attaching this pocket to your exterior panel. Okay, once you get that attached, your slip pocket here, zipper pocket here, your panels are done. We are ready to attach the straps. The last thing I will say, if you wanted to add a logo, you could add your logo here on this side, or you could add it here on this side. It's really personal preference where you'd like to add it. I think I will add mine right here, so I will go ahead and do that before we attach the straps. All right, here is my logo badge here, and I added a piece of vinyl to the back, and that vinyl is going to be the same accent that is along the bottom here. And just because I'm extra and because I didn't forget this time. I added a Marathon Sewciety badge to the back as well. So, all right, so now these are ready for straps. All right, to finish our exterior panels, we need to attach the webbing, and then we need to attach the accent base down here at the bottom. So to attach the webbing, what I've done here is with my length of webbing, I have found the center of my strap and measured out 4 inches on each side. So this is 8-inch wide, and I just folded it in half and then sewed it down along this edge at 1/8 of an inch just to create a nice little handle. You don't have to, but that's just something that I added to it. What we need to do then is to mark. There is a measurement for how far up. You're going to mark the front of your strap and also the back of your strap. And then you're going to place a piece of double-sided tape along the center back of your strap webbing. And that is just to help it hold in place when we attach it here so that it doesn't go anywhere while we're trying to sew it down. So now what we need to do is just measure in from the side. I'm just using my ruler to help to keep it straight, and I'm lining it up with the bottom of my panel. I'm going to push this zipper out of the way. There we go. Like that. And then over on this side, again, measuring in from the side. Removing the paper backing, making sure your strap is not twisted when you attach it down. Okay, so just like that, and my strap webbing is not twisted, so I'm good. Now what we need to do is we're going to sew up to this marked line, across and back down. Then you can add a second row of stitching, which is what I will do. You could also add an optional box here in the center. You could add rivets. Really, you could do whatever kind of stitching you want here. But just add at least one. And because this is a tote, you will want to add a little extra up here at the top. So I'm going to do the 2 rows of stitching, and what that will look like when I am done is like this one here. I added the 2 rows all the way around on both straps. So I will go ahead and do the same here, and then we'll be back to put the bottom accent on. All right, here we go. So both of our straps are attached. I added double stitching lines on both panels. Straps are not twisted. So now what we need to do, I'm going to set one panel to the side, and what we need to do is attach our bottom accent piece. So I'm using this vinyl here. It has a little bit of kind of like a foam sort of backing, and there is a measurement for how far up you need to draw a line here on what will be the top. So if you flip it over, measuring down from the top, you're going to draw this line. You're going to flip this over, and that line that you drew early on where you measured and lined up the bottom of your pockets, that line should still be visible. We're going to line up the edge of that line with the edge of the panel. I'm just going to add a couple clips here on the side to help hold it in place. And then what we're going to do is we are going to stitch straight across this line and then flip it down and top stitch along the folded edge. Okay, now that we have both of these accent panels on the bottom attached, we flipped it down in top stitch. As you will see, this piece perfectly matches and covers up the bottom of our exterior here. Now what we want to do is flip the panels over so they are right sides together. We are going to match up this bottom edge here. We're going to clip it in place all the way across, and then we are going to sew according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern. Once we get that sewn, we are going to butterfly open those seams, flip it back over to the top side or to the right side, and then we're going to top stitch down each side. So again, we are stitching straight across here according to the seam allowance. Once that is done, we're going to butterfly open the seams so they lay flat, and then we're going to top stitch down each side of this center seam. All right, here we go. Bottom seam is stitched. I stitched about 1/8 of an inch from the center seam, and here on the bottom you can see that the seam has been butterflied open. Okay, so now to put this together, we're going to flip it back so it is right sides together, and we're going to match up these side seams. So you want to match up first where your vinyl, where your accent piece connects or attaches on each side. You want to match up that seam first and then go ahead and clip the rest of the way up. And we'll do the same thing to the other side, attaching or matching, I should say, where this seam is for your vinyl. Clip that in place first, and then lining up these sides, clip the rest of the way up the panel. Okay, once you have the sides clipped, we are going to sew straight down the sides according to the seam allowance in the pattern. Then we are going to open this up, box these corners, again using the seam allowance provided in the pattern. And then once we get this done, our exterior is done and we're ready to move on to the lining. All right, moving on to the interior, you're going to take one of your main lining pieces, take your zipper overlay. There is a measurement for how far down you're going to measure. Attach that here. I've used some double-sided tape. And then we are going to stitch around the outside of the box only. Also, just because I have it and it's cute, I think this little tag here that says "Hello Summer" with a pineapple would be really cute on a beach tote. And it's a pop of color inside the bag. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to top stitch all the way around. I'm going to set this to the side just for a moment. Since I'm going over to the sewing machine, we're also going to prep our zipper pocket. So what we want to do is take our lining panel right side up and then take our zipper, our remaining zipper, also right side up. We are going to baste stitch across this edge, and then once we get that done, we're going to take the other side of our zipper tape, line it up with the other side of the pocket, so you'll have it something like this. It'll be attached at the top with your pocket down here in the center, and we're going to baste stitch along that side as well. All right, once you have that done, your zipper overlay is attached. I will say that in the pattern, Amber has a rounded template. I just like the square templates, that's just personal preference, but in the pattern, it does have a rounded template. And then here is what our pocket looks like. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we just need to cut out the center of our zipper overlay. So I've just cut a line right down the center. I'm going to flip it over to the back side and cut this center piece away just enough so that it is not showing on the front side of our pocket. So just be careful as you're going around, making sure that you're only cutting the lining, you're not cutting the zipper overlay. There we go. So that's what it looks like from the front side with the center cut out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to attach our pocket. So the first thing we need to do is figure out which way you want your zipper pocket to open. I typically open to the left, so make sure your zipper pull is going to the left. I'm going to add a piece of double-sided tape here, right along the top edge of the zipper. Going to add, actually, let me do this at the same time. I'm just going to press this down here. I'm going to add some double-sided tape to the bottom as well. And then that way I can attach the panel from the front side, which will be a lot easier to see if I'm centered. Okay, so removing the paper backing from both. What I do is I just eyeball it here, making sure I am pretty much left to right centered. And then centering, yep, I am good left to right. And then you're just going to center your zipper in the opening. And this side can be a little trickier because that zipper wants to flip up. So all right, once you get it how you want it, it is nice and centered. Now what we're going to do is we're only going to top stitch. So making sure our pocket is down towards the bottom of the bag, we're going to top stitch just along this top edge right here. So I'm going to leave some long tails so I can pull it through to the back side and tie it off. We're going to top stitch along this edge only. What we have here is we have the two long sides, and I'm just going to flip it over. I pull this string, which then pulls up a loop. I pull the loop through, and that's how I stitch down the sides, or how I tie down my sides to the back side. So I pull both strings through to the back side so that you cannot see where I started and stopped my stitching on the front side. All right, so just tie off a few knots here, cut those strings, and then I can show you from the front side. You can see here, let's see if I can get in the camera just right. You can see, you can't really tell, it just looks like a stitch. There's no back stitching or any extra strings hanging out. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're going to flip it over. We're going to flip our pocket up. So that we can see it off of the top of our lining panel. And we are going to do the same thing to the bottom. So only stitching through the bottom. Once you get that done, you're going to flip your panel back again, top stitch down the sides. All right, the last thing we have to do here with this pocket, we are going to flip the sides back, and then we need to stitch down the sides of these pockets, closing our panel. So we're closing our zipper pocket. So we're just going to stitch down both sides according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern. Make sure you pull your main lining out of the way so you're only stitching through the pocket. All right, once that is stitched, you can see how your zipper pocket looks. Everything looks great. So we can set this to the side. Let's grab our remaining pieces and we'll work on the slip pocket. All right, for our interior slip pocket, we have our exterior and our lining for the interior slip pocket. I'm using the same material here as the main outer of my bag, because that's going to be, I think, a really neat pop on the inside and also coordinate really well. Okay, so what we want to do is we just want to place these two pieces right sides together. We're going to clip along the top and the bottom edge, and then we are going to sew across both long sides according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern. So what that's going to do is it's going to give us like a giant big long tube. And then we are going to throw away the broken clip. All right, and then again, stitch along both sides according to the seam allowance. It'll give us a big tube. We're going to turn it through so it's right sides out, and then top stitch along the top folded edge only. All right, once you have your pocket top stitched, it is open on the sides, not stitched on the bottom. We are going to grab our remaining lining pocket, or lining panel, I should say. And there is a measurement provided in the pattern for how far up you want to measure from. There's a measurement from the bottom and a measurement from the side. I will verify my measurements off camera, but what we want to do is just clip it along the sides on both sides. Again, making sure it's straight, and like I said, I will verify that off camera before I sew it. But once you get it clipped in place, you're going to sew down the sides and sew all the way across the bottom. So this is going to attach your pocket to your lining panel. The pattern recommends not using a top stitch length of a stitch down here at the bottom, since this is going to be holding your pocket to your lining panel. All right, so I will go ahead, verify those measurements, and sew this on and meet you right back here. All right, once you get that sewn on, the last option you have here is to split up your pocket. So I just went with what was in the pattern and divided this in half. So I have two very good sized pockets. It is up to you if you wanted to add another divider. You could then probably add a bottle of sunblock, maybe some sunglasses. Actually, I might do that as well before I finish sewing that up. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide this pocket in half again. I'll leave this one large, but then I will have the two on this side. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. All right, there we go. I like that. I like having a couple smaller options here, and then we still have the large one here. So perfect. Now what we need to do is put our lining together. So we're going to take both of our lining panels, place them right sides together, matching up the sides. We're going to clip in place along the sides, and we're going to sew the sides and the bottom together. So there is a measurement provided in the pattern where you will start sewing at the top. And then once you get down a certain amount, you're going to increase your seam allowance. Again, all of this is provided in the pattern, all of the measurements, the seam allowances. You're going to start here, increase to what that is. Obviously it's not that much, but you get the idea. You're going to start here, increase, come all the way down. Using that larger seam allowance here, then you're going to sew straight across the bottom. Then we are going to box the corners, and then our lining will be done and we're ready to attach it to the exterior. All right, once you get your corners boxed, I will just go in and trim it back by about half on the corners, and then I'll do the same on the side. However, I'm going to leave the seam allowance at the top. So once I get maybe an inch or so from the top of the bag, I'm just going to veer off to the side. I want that larger seam allowance here on the side because that's going to help me match up those seams nicely when I attach it to the exterior. Okay, so same on this one. Just going to come in and cut that. Cut it back by about half until I get up near the top, and then just veer off to the side. All right, now that we have both of our exterior and our linings together, they are completed, we are ready to put it together. So I'm going to take my lining and turn it right side out. All right, once it's right side out, you want to determine which side you want to be the front of your bag and which side you want to be the back. I think I want the zipper pocket to be towards the back of the bag. So I'm calling the zipper pocket on the exterior the back of the bag. So I guess an easy way to remember that is zipper pocket next to zipper pocket. And I'm just going to drop it inside. There we go. Push your straps to the inside as well. And now we are going to match up the side panels. And if you left your side seams a little bit bigger here at the top, you can butterfly that open. That does make this step a little bit easier. Of course, you could also nest your seams, which to nest them, you would just put one seam allowance one way, one the other way, and then they just butt up next to each other. For this one, I am butterflying my seams. Okay, and then once you get that, you match up your side seams, then we're going to clip all the way around the top of the bag. If you remember, I left a turning hole here in the lining, and I'm going to change that. I'm going to do it actually how it says in the pattern to do it, and that way you won't see that bottom seam on the lining. So how the pattern has it is, instead of stitching all the way around the top, you're going to leave about an 8-inch opening in the top of the bag. So I'm going to take a couple clips off here just to help me remember, don't stitch here. This is going to be my turning hole. So about 8 inches there on the side, and we will turn it through there, and then we will fold this seam down when we top stitch, and then that way you won't have any seams showing. Again, that's just another way. You could do it through the pocket, you could do it through that hole in the bottom, or you could do it here through the side of the top. And so I will leave this open and I will sew that closed so I don't have to worry about that later. All right, now that we have that sewn, I went ahead and sewed that opening in the lining closed to do it this way instead. So now we have this opening here. We're just going to reach in and turn our bag through. All right, once you get your bag turned through, what we need to do is we need to roll these top seams to get them up and as flat as possible. And having this opening here in the top actually is probably going to help greatly in that regard. So you just want to go all the way around the bag and make sure your top seams are nice and flat. Roll it between your fingers if you need to get them where they need to be, making sure that the lining is staying behind your exterior. And we're going to do that all the way around the bag. All right, and then once we get over to where this opening is, we are going to fold those sides under by the seam allowance amount and clip it in place along the top. So we want it to be as flat and smooth as possible, staying in that seam allowance. Just go slow here, make sure it's where it's supposed to be. Okay, you can double check it to make sure everything looks good. Straighten out your lining on the inside, which will be a little bit easier to do once we get everything top stitched and everything. Push those corners out. Okay, so now the last thing we have to do here is just top stitch all the way around the top of the bag. All right, and here is our completed Eileen Pool Tote. So on the inside, again, I have the zipper pocket with a cute little Hello Summer tag. On the other side, I have the slip pockets. And then on the outside, on this side, you have a slip pocket and a zipper pocket. Other side, you have, of course, the two mesh pockets and then the clear vinyl pocket. And there's your bottom. All right, guys, that is the Eileen Pool Tote by Sew Majestic. Thank you so much for joining me for this video tutorial today. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you enjoy making the pattern. I will link to the pattern in the video description. And there is a coupon code that is valid for a time to get this pattern at a discount. So if you're watching it during the premiere, go ahead and grab that coupon and get yourself a copy, because this is such a cute tote. All right, and then again, thank you so much for supporting me and the Marathon Sewciety while we do our Saturday sewing marathons. I find them to be a lot of fun, and I really enjoy live chatting with everybody. So again, thank you for joining me. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to give the video a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're not already. I know it takes just a second, but it really does help me a lot with my channel. So I appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a great day, and I hope you get to go sew something fun.